Hey guys, so I know this may seem a bit out of left field randomly talking about Transformer stuff, but this is tangentially related to Rooster Teeth, and I fucking love the Siege toy line, especially because getting Seekers with waist rotation is extremely rare. Even the Masterpiece figures don't have that. But Transformers means a lot to me, and I really did want to talk about my thoughts on the War for Cybertron Siege trailer, because there are some things I like, and a couple things I'm not terribly enthusiastic on. Let's start with one of the most surface elements, the animation. When I heard they were doing this, I was very afraid we'd have a machinima issue, because the Prime Wars trilogy had a brutally painful frame rate, but this is actually pretty damn good. There's a really nice, almost Earth Wars style aesthetic to this animation, and I personally really like it. The frame rate is beautiful, the designs are as good as the toy line, which is fantastic. The effects look nice, Impactor looks surprisingly based on the retail release, which I'm a bit taken aback by. I thought they would have tried to promote the 3-pack. Then again, this is a series being released during the Earthrise run, and you can't really get a good look at his head. He might have the 3-pack IDW head, I don't know. Bumblebee's here? Makes me a bit suspicious they're going to bring in a Bumblebee to Earthrise, which, yeah, of course they are, and that cliff jumper looks really good, so, maybe this will be good too. I'm trying to see who these two Seekers are. This one looks a bit too dark to be Acid Storm. Maybe that one's Red Wing. It seemed weird that they'd use Seekers as the generic Decepticon fodder instead of Reflectors, given he got a new figure in multiple colors in Siege. I know they briefly show Reflector later, but still. Alita 1 I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see, considering she didn't get a figure at all in Siege, although it is possible this is due to her Prime Wars figure, or maybe, and this is what I'm hoping, the series is trying to be a good Transformers series before just a toy commercial, which I'm really hopeful for. This does look really good. And when I checked TF Wiki, I found out this was actually animated by Polygon Pictures, and sure enough, they animated Transformers Prime, which is a show that also looks beautiful. They also animated RID, but we all make mistakes. Also, one thing I really like is that it seems Skyfire is still with the Decepticons at some point in the series, so it's possible they could tell us a story about Skyfire defecting to the Autobots. And let's talk about something I'm a bit iffy on, not that iffy, the voice acting. The voices in this trailer that I could identify are Jake Tillman's Optimus Prime, Edward Bosco's Ultra Magnus, Jason Momoa's Megatron, a grunt from Chromia, Lindsay Rizzo's Alita 1, Mark Whitten's Sideswipe, and Josie Edge's Bumblebee. Now obviously, can't say much, we've only got snippets, this is just a trailer, and Chromia and Sideswipe, we've only heard grunting from, so, and it is possible that was Barricade, but I don't think that sound was Barricade. Lindsay's Alita 1 sounds perfectly fine. Obviously it doesn't have the same sort of authority and gravity of the original Marley and Aragon version, but I don't think that's really her fault. The specific line chosen doesn't require that sort of feeling. This is meant to show her kind, nurturing side and less of the badass leader side, and that's fine. I am really hopeful they can tell the romance between her and Optimus very well, which for anyone who might have read IDW, and sinfully I haven't dabbled much in the original IDW run, but I've heard all of the good things. You'd know romance in Transformers can be done very well. Also, Steelbolt and Black Arachnia and Ratchet and RC were romance stories that were told well in their series and didn't really detract at all. I have no real comment on Joe's Bumblebee. It has sort of youthful inflection. You can hear it in the background, you can hear it in the back of its voice. But of course, he's a very serious line, so he doesn't have much to say. And Ultra Magnus sounds great. Then there's Jake Tillman's Optimus Prime. Now, I am one of those people who thinks that Peter Cullen is the perfect Optimus voice, but I don't necessarily think that there can't be other Optimus Primes. Gary Chalk's Optimus Prime is really great throughout Beast Wars and even the Unicron trilogy. In fact, Gary Chalk and David Kaye are some of the few good parts of Energon, and David Kaye's Optimus Prime in Animated was also really good. I have no comment on how good Jake is in Cyberverse. I've been far too lazy to get around to watching Cyberverse, but this, I'm not sure on. There are some lines where he sounds really good, like
Cybertron needs freedom.
But when he says Allspark here, it sounds a bit too much like how I do when I fuck up a line as Optimus, which is every line. Not to say I could do better.
Autobots, transform and roll out.
I do prefer this voice to the Gundam vs. Optimus Prime one from Death Battle. A lot of people love that voice for Optimus. It was way too deep for me. It was like,
Megatron, you will lose here.
But Optimus is not just the deep voice. It's not that deep. He hasn't got like a grunty voice. I'm a little hesitant on Jake. I hope he'll be good though. Part of that though is because I love Jason's take on Megatron. By far the best part of the Prime Wars trilogy was Megatron. Personally, love Frank Welker's Megatron, love David Kaye's Megatron, and Corey Burton's Megatron is one of the most underrated takes on the character. And Hugo Weaving exists. But Jason, I think, is also really good. Maybe not as good as them. He lacks the sadistic, unnatural nature of Frank and the cunning brilliance of Kay. I think he does a solid Burton-esque voice, just not as well as Corey Burton. I'll be honest, the thing I'm most happy about in the voice cast is bringing Jason back. He was able to swing with Peter Cullen and sound great. Even though Cullen was barely in the Prime Wars series because Bailey did Optimus for Combiner Wars and he was only at the end of Power of the Primes. Also, I noticed Aragon is in this trailer. I cannot express how legitimately awesome it is to see a fucking Power Dasher repaint that nobody asked for in this series. It's so pointless, but I love that he's there. Now, one issue I do have is that a lot of these sound effects are a bit too lacking the impact. They sound like the sort of shit I do for Transformers sound effects on my channel because I'm incompetent. I know people are going to complain that the Transformers move too smoothly and too fast, but guys, these aren't mech suits or Jaegers. They might be giant, but they are living biomechanical aliens. From the very first series, from the very first 3D series, from the very first live-action interpretation, saving Energon from all of those things that they barely move in that series, they've been moving like that. Now, this trailer does get me hyped. It really does. I really want this to be good. People have been clamoring for a humanless on Cybertron series for a long time. And while I personally have only been bothered by humans a handful of times, like the live-action movies and... well, that's it, because I haven't had the chance to legally watch the 2001 Robots in the Sky series, and I don't acknowledge the other Robots in the Sky series. I understand some people only want to see the robots, though. Even though Sorry was awesome, and Agent Fowler was awesome, and Skywarp joining G.I. Joe is fucking awesome. Now, obviously, we did have Beast Machines and the Prime Wars trilogy already with the whole Set on Cybertron No Human story, but those shows aren't ones people look back on with positive feelings. And, of course, there was the War for Cybertron 4 Cybertron games, and they are some of the best games I've ever played, but they're games, they're not shows, and people wanted series as well. The Predacons Rising film also did this sort of thing, but likewise, that's somewhat of a controversial movie, because it leaves a lot open that was never addressed in Robots in the Skies, and it has a lot of narrative issues, like, what the fuck happened to Shockwave? He gets barreled down, and then he shows up for a second, and then he's just gone. But I'm still very hopeful. Please be good, War for Cybertron Siege, Netflix original animated series. Please be good. Also, Miles Luna, I can forgive you for all the Ruby shit, but if you do one of my favorite mini-bots dirty, I will fucking end you. Also, you're voicing Teletran, but I like Teletran, but Casey Kasem was a good Teletran, but I think it was Casey Kasem, but I honestly would have loved if Victor Caroli got to voice Teletran, but you know. Alright, bye.